Folks, pro libertate, thanks again for watching, where I discuss freedom, philosophy, theology, art, whatever comes to mind at the moment. Today I wanted to talk about this story I saw the other day. It was about a man who gets 99 years in jail. I guess it really should say prison. 99 years in prison for kicking a police officer. And I'll just play the news video and give a brief, reaction to it.
Denison man was sentenced to almost 100 years in prison, all for kicking a police officer earlier this year.
The officer was not seriously hurt. News 12's Stan Smith talked to prosecutors after the judge handed down his punishment. He joins us live in the studio. Stan, why such a steep punishment?
Jen Dan, 59-year-old Donnie Mills will spend 99 years in prison for assaulting a Denison police officer. This body cam footage shows the moment when he kicked Officer Chris Bell back in April as he was getting loaded on a gurney inside a local hospital. But prosecutors say the reason his sentence was so high is that he is a repeat offender. On April 26th, Officer Chris Bell clocked Donnie Mills speeding on Highway 91. Bell pulled Mills over and says he smelled alcohol on his breath, which Mills says he admitted to drinking earlier in the day. Mills was arrested for driving while intoxicated and was taken to a local hospital for a blood sample. That's when Mills began to act hostile.
I don't give a what you are. You're a
Mills then started to threaten Officer Bell.
Come on, what are you going to do, mother? I put you on the ground. Stop it right now. You.
Moments later, Mills was placed on a gurney for a blood sample. That's when he kicked Mills in the face. Bell was not seriously hurt and didn't need medical attention. The blood sample showed Mills' blood alcohol content was nearly 2.5 times the legal limit. This isn't Mills' first run-in with the law, as he has been to prison for drugs, burglary, aggravated assault on a public servant, and felony DWI.
He has a 40-year criminal history going back starting in 1979 with his first DWI, and he has been to the penitentiary for 5 different felonies.
The verdict was handed down by the jury Wednesday morning after just 1 day in court.
The Grayson County jury, the citizens of Grayson County have a zero tolerance for violence on peace officers, and I think that's a loud and clear message. This defendant will have the rest of his life to think about his actions.
Grayson County District Attorney Brett Smith said.
All right, I'll stop it there. So there's a distinction here. We have certain people that it's not okay to kick. And those people happen to be those wearing government-issued costumes. Okay? Now, before I, criticize this decision, let me be perfectly clear. This guy is a loser. I don't make any, overtures that he's some sort of good guy. He is not a virtuous person. He's a dirtbag. I wouldn't want him around my town. I understand. He's a loser and he's a cancer to the local area in which he lives. I totally agree with that. However, would he have gotten 99 years if he kicked me? Okay? Would he have gotten 99 years if he kicked one of those nurses over there, the hospital staff? Would he have gotten 99 years if he kicked this scrawny reporter? The reporter sticking a mic in his face, he doesn't appreciate it, and he kicks him. Would he have gotten 99 years for that? But if you're wearing a government-issued costume, that's when the full force of the law comes crashing down on you. If you harm the hallowed personage of a person wearing a government-issued costume, then all of a sudden there's a separate set of laws. There's a separate set of penalties. They're much harsher, and they're much more readily enforced. I mean, this was a jury. This wasn't just a judge. This was a jury that agreed to this. Bunch of thin blue line people, right? So this there's what this really establishes is a two-tiered system. One of my heroes is William Norman Grigg, and I named this channel after him. He's one of the guys I really modeled a lot of my political philosophy off of, and he would have a field day with this, where he's still with us. And William Norman Grigg was a Christian and a libertarian. I fall into the same category. I'm probably not as libertarian as William would like me to be, but he set me on a good path. I do have exceptions. And these guys are essentially in a different class from the rest of citizens. If you kick one of them, it's worse than kicking somebody else. And that's not right. That's an injustice. That's a weighted scale. Justice, in the historic sense, was seen as a woman holding the scales in her hands, right? And she'd be blindfolded, right? In this case, justice has the blindfold removed, and she's looking at the costume that the person being kicked is wearing. Totally bogus. And as the reporters themselves said, the police officer wasn't injured. That wasn't a very strong kick. It was a kick. The guy's an obnoxious pig. I'm not denying that. He's an obnoxious pig. He's a prick. And he's a nuisance to society. I don't deny any of that. I mean, he's probably got illegitimate kids. Probably on his third or fourth divorce at this point. He's a loser. I'm not denying that whatsoever. The kind of guy who acts like this is a complete loser. However, we need equal weights and equal measures, as a wise man once said. And if a kick on a nurse, if a kick on a news reporter, if a kick on a physician is going to land the guy a specific sentence, then a kick on a police officer needs to land the same sort of sentence. It's unjust to have different weights and measures based upon whom is kicked. That's an unjust society. That's an unjust weight and measure. But this is what the thin blue line culture has created. These guys who are essentially above the law, but also when harm has been done to them, more than what is warranted is meted out against the offender. And that, again, is unjust. So just because somebody's running around in a government-issued costume doesn't grant them more rights or more protection than your average citizen under the law. They have a duty to perform. I believe in having police, but they really should be just that, peace officers. Police exist so that I can walk down the street at night and not worry about being mugged. They don't exist to write speeding tickets. They don't exist to harass me about seatbelts, right? That's all unjust policing. That's not about safety. And it's not about safety because a motorcycle cop rolls up and writes you a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt. Right? Let the thin blue line guys parse that one out for me. I don't know. But I do believe in policing. And I've been on the police side more often than my hero, William Grigg, would have liked. I believed that that shooting over there in Ferguson, where Michael Brown was killed, was a just shooting. The guy just robbed a store, and then he started fighting with a cop and trying to take his gun. I think he should have got shot. The cop was right. But in this case, this is thin blue line culture at work, where the guy's wearing the government-issued costumes, the guy's running around in badges, wearing government-issued jewelry, and they have a greater protection under the law than your average citizen. I know, like I've said several times, this guy's a scumbag. I have no sympathy for him in general as a person. Honestly, I would be fine if the cops just kind of roughed him up a bit. I don't really have a problem with that. He's cussing at them, he's fighting them, and as you saw, he kicked him. I have no problem if the cop drops an elbow on him. You know, like if you're gonna punch and hit, if you're gonna punch and hit and cuss and start stuff with people, then you should expect likewise in return. It's very simple. So I'm not one of those that, winces when I see a cop drop a punch on somebody or drop an elbow on somebody. Sometimes those people deserve it. That's part of policing. Those guys deserve it sometimes. So I'm willing to admit that when it's the case. And this guy, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem if, he got a little roughed up. But 99 years in a government cage. The rest of his life. I mean, he'll probably make parole, and this will probably be appealed, but 99 years. The fact that a jury would be willing to mete out that punishment is absurd. It's disturbing, and it's, like I said, it's a symptom of this thin blue line culture where the cops are up here as far as protection, privileges, what they can and cannot do, and your average citizen's down here. That's unacceptable. We all need to be on the same level playing field. I can't do something that a cop couldn't. Cops can't do things that I couldn't. But again, this is all a symptom of that thin blue line culture and all that sort of nonsense, where the police are perennially victims and guys like this are the perpetrators. And the sooner we can throw away guys like that, the better. It's unhealthy, and this is what it produces, is what I'm trying to get at. This is what all of that sort of thinking produces. People being thrown into a cage for 99 years for kicking a cop. Thanks for watching. Pro Libertate. Like, subscribe if you enjoy this, and take care.